Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spot 360. I'm here with my good friend Harrison Kern to talk about things around, whether it's regarding Black Milwaukee, whether it's politics, whether it's politicians or politics. We're gonna talk about it. We always have these conversations. I found them very interesting and stimulating. So I think I want to share with you guys. So, Harrison, let's talk about some of the stuff that's been going on around the city of Milwaukee.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the fact that you think my opinion is of value. To the point, because I know we talk a lot, man. I have a lot of appreciation for you, and I'm glad that you feel the same. What is it about Milwaukee that really concerns me right now? There are a number of things. On the political front, as well as on the front of us as a community. There are two totally different things happening, but Milwaukee's a tale of two different cities right now. On one hand, you have a city that's blooming like it never has. You know, you have $6 billion in investments in the city within a 2 or 3 year period of time. New hotels being built, new commerce on all ends. The problem is you have another segment of the city that's not engaged in that at all. Some of it, I think some of it is caused by self. At the same time, you have the built-in discriminatory things that we've dealt with as a community for a long time as well. Mm-hmm. And the combination of both of those causes us to see the city in two different ways. A lot of people do not know that Milwaukee has been ranked as one of the best cities, if not the best city in the Midwest, by a number of national magazines and national vacation and travel entities over the last few years, and it's been done consistently. That would probably come as a surprise to a lot of people of color like me in the city, but it's a fact. And they look at the livability of the city, the amount of investment in downtown, the housing, the arts, the access to dining, and a very livable downtown, more so than other cities. In fact, it was very interesting when they looked at it. They compared those things, and a lot of people look at the buildings and look at the glass towers, and they look at Milwaukee as being a relatively underbuilt, city in terms of downtown, in terms of the structures. But if you compare it to a city like Houston, that is like Emerald City, at 5 o'clock, everybody leaves downtown, and it's ghost town. Whereas here, downtown has become a destination for a lot of reasons, and a lot of those reasons are good reasons. But that being said, as an example of the disconnect between a lot of people in this community and what's really going on, the mayor and people who subscribe to his philosophy see no problem in spending another $25 million in a train extension for a recently adopted and recently launched downtown train that goes around in a 2 or 3 mile circle.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they announced just last week, there was an announcement from the mayor's office that there was a $25 million expenditure, or we will be spending $25 million to expand the choo-choo train, as I want to call it, downtown. Actually 2 blocks, 2 whole blocks. To go 2 blocks north on 4th Street, make a U-turn just south of Wisconsin Avenue, and go 2 blocks south, back down 5th Street. Now this 2-block extension is costing this city $25 million. And when you think of that, and you look at the infrastructure needs that the city of Milwaukee has, potholes from end to end, people damaging their cars, having accidents and things created by the lack of maintenance in the streets. There's a real disconnect between the people and the reality of what's going on and what's happening downtown at City Hall. Now, I did hear the mayor explain a few days ago at a State of the 9th District meeting that he was at with Alderman Chantel Lewis. He did explain what the problem is in terms of financing a lot of these potholes because of the difference in city streets and state, streets and things like that, where the funding comes from. But that falls on deaf ears if you have a vehicle that just went over a 2-foot pothole and tore up your rims of your car, costing you $1,000, and the city doesn't want to be responsible for it. And then you hear that they're spending $25 million for a train that goes 2 blocks and serves absolutely who.
So how many people you think know about the $25 million? Because again, this is a major investment by the city for a vehicle that only serves a very, very small portion of the entire city, yet we're all going to be paying $25 million for this. How many of the actual citizens of Milwaukee know that this is about to occur?
Well, probably very few. However, it's not necessarily because the information is out there. A lot of people in this city and even around the nation stay clueless. And it's not, a part of it is because they don't attempt to engage. Because if I saw this information, I didn't have to dig for it. I didn't have to go to a source that other people don't have. It was something that was broadcast. It was in the newspaper. It was, I think the Milwaukee Journal carried it, front page news. If you were online and you have any feeds to the news, it would come out on anything locally that came out. So even though a lot of people may not have the access in terms of how you look at news now, I'm sure it was even carried on television news. So it was out there. The question is whether people are paying attention enough and care enough to make some noise about it.
Right.
And we've seen, we have a number of people complain about a lot of things. I happen to get into a online on Facebook, and I do quite a bit on Facebook. But about 2 weeks ago, there was an announcement regarding the new parking situation and the ability of the what they call now is putting the windshield boot on the vehicles. And one of our elected officials took the attitude that this was an assault on poor people and was some way unfair.
And we're going to talk about that one a little bit more too, because a lot of times a lot of politicians talk about the disparaging treatment of particular laws that hampers the minority community or the poor community in such a way that they throw it out there as a first defense of something. If they don't agree with it, that's the first thing.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. I didn't.
No, it's definitely something I want to go to in depth. But the reason I brought that up is just as that, again, was out there and it was on the news, a lot of the people that should be involved, invested in addressing it, are not at the table. And it's not that they're being kept from the table. They just have total apathy. A lot of what happens in the city is that there's a result of apathy among people who look like us. When you think about the voting numbers, the percentage of us who vote, for all of the things we complain about, we've had the ability just in sheer numbers in the city that if we wanted to change any of the things that we're complaining about, we could have affected change in any way that we saw fit. But it's one thing not to engage with the system and then complain about what the system is doing. So I brought up this thing with the parking because the very people who were fighting for the so-called poor people or the underserved people or whoever is going to be affected by this new boot policy were not the ones that were arguing on that behalf. Or were not arguing on their own behalf, but somebody else is arguing for them. The very people who complain about what's wrong in the city are not the ones going to the polls and voting. So for me, it's a disconnect, because if you don't care about if you don't care enough to try to do something about your own condition or whatever you perceive your condition to be, then why should I care about that?
Right.
And as a black man, I'm a very proud black man. But at the same point in time, I have a real problem with the excuses that we have allowed ourselves to become, that has caused us to become very complacent and to keep falling further and further behind, because what we won't do, even when we have the ability and the wherewithal to do it. And so apathy is really killing this community. And so when you ask about the train, the information is out there. The question is somebody, does our community care enough to make it enough of an issue that you're going to get out of your chair and you're going to go down to City Hall, or you're going to go to your alderman, or you're going to go to your congressman and make some noise?
All right, well, that's the spot for this week.
I ain't finished talking. I got other stuff to say.
Because we're going to have a lot of stuff. Yeah, this is a lot of content. So I'm gonna break it up over a couple, definitely over a couple of days for sure. But again, thank you. Because again, like I said, this type of stuff to me is like, more people should be talking about, and more people should have an actual opinion or, some viewpoints on this stuff. Because, we're not talking on the national level. We're talking right here in our own literally in our own backyard.
Absolutely. And that's where it all starts. You know, change is made in the backyard. It's made in the backyard before that we made at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Hey, Squirrel, you want to be in the video? Okay, man, come on out.